Square to round elbow at 90 degrees. We'll be doing 3 pieces at 30 degrees each, and we'll be working with 3.5 by 3.5 square to a 3.5 inch diameter. And let's get to it. Okay, let's start off by making a 90 degree line. Our throat, we're going to give it 2.5 inches, and the square is going to be 3.5, so 1, 2, 3.5. So 2.5 inch throat and 3.5 inch square. Okay, and let me just quickly show, I didn't do that in the very beginning of the video, but that's a 2.5 inch throat. Alright, go ahead and take your compass and put your sharp point where the vertical and horizontal lines meet at 90 degrees. Open up your compass at your 2.5 inch throat, lock it in place, and make your throat. Leave it in the same spot, open it up to the 3.5 inch mark, lock it in place, and make your heel. Leave it in the same position on your compass, put your sharp point here, and strike an arc somewhere right there on the heel, and that is going to be your 60 degree mark. Get your ruler, line this mark to that 90 degree point, and do a line. Okay, next let's take this and divide it in half so we can find the midpoint of the 3.5 inch. So half of 3.5 inch is 1 3/4, so 1 3/4. There's your midpoint there. Alright, let's get your compass, put sharp point right there in the middle, and then open it up to each side and make sure that it's even on both sides. Okay, and then make your half circle. Okay, now let's go ahead and find the midpoint of this half circle. Put sharp point here, strike an arc there, put sharp point on the opposite end of the half circle and crisscross the previous arc, and there is your midpoint. Line this up to the center of that circle and make a mark. Okay, let's keep going and divide these up in more pies. Okay, so let's go ahead and divide this. Run these crisscross arcs to the center of the circle. Make a mark like so. Same thing on this side. Okay, let's divide these pies in half one more time. Okay, line up the crisscross arcs to the center of your circle and make some marks. Alright, next step. What we're going to do is take these marks now and throw some marks to line up against this line right here. So just follow my lead. So get your ruler and line it up to this line as straight as possible along it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your square, and what we're trying to do is make some marks at 90 degrees along this line with these marks here. So just follow my lead. So put your pencil point on this mark here, line up your square, and then make a mark there. Same thing on this side. Pencil point there and make a mark here. Same thing on this one, make a mark there, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and number these. These will be numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is going to be this corner here. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is going to be that corner there. Okay, so now that we have that, now let's go ahead and we're going to take these marks here and swing them over to the opposite side of this pie by using our compass. So put your sharp point right here at the 90 degree. And then open up your pencil point to the first mark, which is right here. You'll lock it in place and make an arc. Follow my lead, do the same thing on the next line. Lock it in place and make an arc. Okay, and let's number these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, see this pie right here? Let's go ahead and put a dividing line right down the center. Line up your ruler to that crisscross arc to the end of that 90 degree point and make a line down the center. Okay, next step, let's go ahead and take some lines from one side of the pie to the opposite side of each arcing point right here. So just follow my lead. Line up your ruler to one side of the pie and then make a line. Do the same thing on the next one. Alright, next step. See this pie right here that's 60 degree? Let's go ahead and divide this in half to expose 2 more 30 degrees. Line up your crisscross arcs to the 90 degree points. And put your pencil point right there and make the other line. Alright, so now you have 3 30 degree points or segments. Let's keep going. Alright, so get your ruler and line it up against this 60 degree line like so. As much as perfect as possible as you can. And then what you're going to do is take your square, and what you're going to do is you're going to line it up where this 30 degree point is at along this line here. So just follow my lead, Gonna butt up your square like so, and then make a line. Okay, keep your ruler in the same position, slide your square down, and then you're gonna line up your square to where the throat point is at, and then butt it up against it. And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna also make a line, but go past it just a little bit, just like so. All right, next step. Let's go ahead and circle these points right here. These will be important to notice. Okay, now what we're going to do is get your ruler, and we're going to do also a 90-degree line based off of this line here, the previous lines that we just made. And what you're going to do is line up your rulers as close as possible, and then what you're going to do is take your square and then butt it up against that circle point right here, and then just make a random line like so. So as you can see, you made a 90-degree line like that. Okay, do the same thing on the opposite end. So line up your ruler on this line here, and then get your square and butt it up against the circle point there, and make a random line like so. So as you can see, you made two 90-degree lines, one right here and one right here. So what this is these are going to be your true length triangles. I know they look weird, but I figured I'd show you guys a way to do this. What you can do is, if you want, you can make just two separate 90-degree lines, but as you can see, these are two different true length triangles. So okay, so the next step is you see this line right here, put an X right there, and do the same thing on this line, put an X here. So that these X's are going to be important to notice. Okay, next step. So what we're going to do is, since we want 3.5 inch square, what we have here is 3.5 inch on this line, but we need to reach half of that on these lines here. So 3.5 divided by 2 would be 1 3/4. So what you can do is take your compass, put your sharp point in the center where that circle's at, and we know that if you extend it to the opposite side of the circle, that'll be half of 3.5 inches. So you have it like that. Put your sharp point now on the X, and then strike an arc right there. Do the same thing on this one. Put your sharp point on this X and strike an arc on that line right there. Okay, next step. So you see these lines that we just made. Line up your ruler to both lines and then join them together by making a line like so. Okay, next step. See these corners? You're gonna mark this as corner A, and this will be corner B. So just really quick, let me just kind of explain. What we have here is you have a look down view of this square to round transition like so. So if you can kind of tell, this square, you see this radius right here? That's what this is representing right here. And if you look at this line right there, that is a line that's going to be right here. Okay, and then if you notice, you see this radius here, right there. This radius is represented right here on this line. And then this line here, the square, see how it protrudes out of the radius? That's this right here. See that? So hopefully that kind of makes sense. That's basically what you're looking at. This is right here. This is right there. And then this line is here. And then this radius is right here. Okay? All right, let's keep going. So let's triangulate numbers A to 1 through 5, and then B from 1 to 5. So just follow my lead. get your compass, put sharp point on A, and then open up your pencil point to number 1, and I'll lock it in place like so. And now what you're going to do is put your sharp point where that circle's at, swing it over, and this is going to be 1. Do the same thing, A to 2. Sharp point on the circle, swing it over, and that is going to be 2, A to 2. Next one, A to 3. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point in the circle, swing it over, that is 3. Next one, 4. Lock it in place like so. Put sharp point on the circle, swing it over, and now you found 4. Next one, 5. Sharp point on A, pencil point on the end of the half circle. We're going to lock it in place like so. Sharp point on the circle, swing it over, and now you found 5. And then now you're going to put your compass X to 5. So that's X to 5. I'm going to lock it in place. Put sharp point on the circle and make a mark right there. And that's X to 5. So, really quick, as you can tell, see how the X is right here? And then 5 is right here. So that's the distance if you're looking at it the way you see it on the camera. So from there to there is from there to there. Okay, let's keep going. So let's do the same thing from B to 1, B to 2, B to 3, B to 4, and B to 5. And then X to 5. Okay, so I realized I didn't mark X to 5 on this one. So X to 5, I apologize. From there to there. So hopefully you guys caught that. From there to there. So this is X to 5. Okay. Okay, so now that we have this layout, now we have the information on this layout to transfer over to our grid to make this circle here. And then we have this layout here to make the transition of the pattern for the square to round. So let's go ahead and start by making the grid to make this circle here. So we want a 3.5" diameter, like so, times 3.1416 equals 11 inches. So from here all the way around, closed loop is 11 inches. So we're going to make a horizontal line at 11 inches. Okay, now as far as the vertical line for our grid, you're going to take the numbers on this 1 through 9, the longest line within this pie. So the longest line within this pie 1 through 9 is going to be 9. So 9 looks like it has a length of about maybe what, 3 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and make the vertical line at 3 1/2. Okay, let's count 11 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And our vertical line is 3 1/2. So 1, 2, 3 1/2. Let's go ahead and close this loop by making the other portion here on the grid. Okay, let's put a divided line right here in the center. So 3 1/2 divided by 2 is 1 3/4. Okay, now let's take this and divide this in half. Now let's take these two and divide them in half. We'll do this again one more time. Here, 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 and here. Okay, next step, see these points in this half circle? So you're going to take one of these pies, 1 through 5, whichever one you want, and what we're going to do is just match one of those. They should be pretty similar to one another, pretty close. Now what you can do is put it here, follow my lead. Swing it over. Oops. Okay, now let's go ahead and make some lines. Follow my lead. Alright, now just a side note, instead of making all these dividing lines like how I did here, what others do is just simply, if you wanted to, just take one of these pies, lock it in place, and then you can just simply start making some lines like so. So that's another option if you want to go that route. Okay, let's number these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's begin. Get your compass And what you're going to do is just worry or concentrate on this portion of the elbow, on this 30-degree mark. And what you're going to do is put your compass, your sharp point, along this dividing part of the pie and swing it over to the opposite ends of the pie in either or. And that is going to be the stuff that you're going to transfer over to our grid. So just follow my lead. So this is 1. Sharp point on 1 and 1. Okay, next one, 2, sharp point right down the center of that line, and the vertical lines cross, where the crisscross lines meet. Lock it in place like so. 2 and 2. Next one, 3. Four. Five. Six. Now let's go ahead and do the other portion of the 30 degree and make the squared around transition. Okay, let's start off by making a horizontal line at 3.5 inches. So 1, 2, 3.5. This will be starting point A, starting point B. So this will be starting point A and B. So that's what we have right here. Okay, let's begin. So let's start off with A1 and B1 to crisscross each other and find the center point of that radius circle. So follow my lead. Sharp point on A1 right here, put your sharp point on 1, and then open up your pencil point to where X is at. Now lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A, and do a random mark on the top. And then the same thing with B1. So B1 is right here. Sharp point on 1. Put your pencil point where X is at. Lock it in place. Put sharp point on B and crisscross the previous arc. And now you found 1. Okay? Let's get the distance now from 1 to 2. Distance from 1 to 2 looks like that. You're gonna do an arc on both sides. Okay, next is A1 or A2 and B2. So here's 2. Sharp point on 2. Open up your pencil point to X. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A. And there's 2. Do the same thing on B2. Sharp point on 2. Open up your pencil point to X. Lock it in place. Sharp point on B. Crisscross the previous arc, and now you found 2. Alright, rinse and repeat. Let's keep going. So the distance from 2 to 3 looks like so. And this should be almost the same. If not, we can make adjustments. Okay. Now let's go for 3, A3. A3 is right here. And that is 3. B3. Open up your pencil point to X, lock it in place. Sharp point there. So that is number 3. Okay, next, distance from 3 to 4. Lock it in place like so. Same thing on this one. 3 to 4. Lock it in place like so. Sharp point here. Okay, now let's find 4. So 4 is right here. Open up your pencil point to X and lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A, crisscross the previous arc, and now you found 4 on the A side. On the B side, 4. Okay, let's do the last one. 5. 4, distance from 4 to 5. Lock it in place like so. And this one, let's just double check, because it could be different. Okay, now let's find 5. On here, 5, put sharp point on 5, open up your pencil point to X, lock it in place like so. Sharp point on A, crisscross the previous arc, and now you found 5. Do the same thing on this side, on the B side, so 5 is right here. Sharp point on 5, pencil point on X, lock it in place. Crisscross the previous arc, and now you found 5. Okay, so we have this right here. We have all this radius right here, or at least half of that. Actually, not half, but yeah. So we have that here, and then half of this radius here. Now what we need to find is this portion here and that portion there, here and there. Okay, so half of 3 1/2 is 1 3/4, so you can just take half of this circle here and then put your sharp points on A and B and strike some random arcs. Okay, now you're going to put sharp point on A side and put it on X to 5, sharp point on there, and then open up your pencil point to X, as you can see. Sharp point now on 5, swing it down, crisscross that arc, and now you found X. Same thing on 5 on the B side, so X to 5 is right here. Open up your pencil point to X, lock it in place like so. Sharp point now on 5, swing it down, crisscross that arc, and now you found X. And that should be this right here. So pretty close. And you would need 2 of these. So these would go like so. And it wraps around. It goes like that. And on this side, it wraps around, you bend it, and it goes like so. Okay, and then as far as the elbow, that's pretty self-explanatory, but as you can see, you can just copy that. This would essentially be the pattern, so you just cut this out, and that would be here. Put it like so, and then your radius, you can do the same thing. You can measure it. You can measure what this is here, and it looks like 3 1/8. So that's what you would need. So you'd make it 3 1/2 by 3 1/8 inch long, and then just bend it. I'll run it through the slip roll, and that's it. And the same thing would apply for the throat side right here. So that is how you do a square to round elbow at 90 degrees, 3-piece. That is it for this video. So if you got value out of it and know of a friend or a co-worker that can make use of this at work, go ahead and share this with them. And that'll be it. So I will see you guys in the next video.